Buonasera, thank you for coming. I'm very happy to have those two ladies with me tonight because they did an amazing work when everybody was a little bit isolated at home. Exhibitions were not to organize, and tried a little bit to understand how to use the time for a good cause. Please tell me, how did it start? When exactly it started?
We've been great friends for many, many years.
I
And
know.
we always help one another with our individual projects. And we had always wanted to collaborate, but had never really focused on something. And so, like all friends, we were Zooming and chatting and catching up during the pandemic. And people within the design world had started doing IG Live interviews, so we both done a couple of them. And Paola said, look, we should do something on this together. And then the whole thing sort of span off quite organically. We contacted a great friend, Frith Kerr, the brilliant graphic designer of Studio Frith. And within 3 days, she had a visual identity for us. And that's going to be spinning. There's a sort of visual story of Design Emergency, which will be screened behind us. And we decided initially that we would focus on the design response to COVID-19, which we felt had been exemplary. So we looked for the global design leaders in different fields all over the world. One of them is with us here, the brilliant Italian information designer Federica Fragapane, who did a terrific interview with Paola, who did amazing data visualizations on COVID-19 and vulnerability. And then after a couple of months, we decided we would focus on the future and the end game. How can we radically redesign and reconstruct our lives post-pandemic?
So as far as I understand, there's always an emergency, you're saying. You went far away from the initial start.
Yes and no. I mean, we did go. It's never really far away. Yes, there is always a design emergency because design is about life, and we're surrounded by emergencies, big and small, local and global, and they all intersect. Especially the global ones. To say that the environmental emergency is not connected to the social justice emergency, to the crisis of democracies all over the world, would be not to understand the big picture. And Alice and I instinctively think in this systemic way. We think that there's an interconnectedness amongst many emergencies. And so even though it might seem that we go far from the pandemic, we're always there. And just on the 25th of May, the day that the book launched worldwide, we re-interviewed Michael Murphy, who was the very first interview that we had. Michael Murphy is a wonderful architect. He's based in Boston. And he's the co-founder of Mass Design Group, which is a company that has offices in different parts of the world, mostly in the United States and in Rwanda, and it's a company of 250 architects. They were 120 at the beginning of the pandemic. Now they are double because they're expert in healthcare systems. So not only hospitals, but really how to harness an emergency, whether it's the Ebola crisis in West Africa or the cholera crisis in Haiti or the COVID-19 pandemic, harness it to establish infrastructures of healthcare that will have long-lasting benefits. So this is just an example. We're never far away from the beginning.
Instagram enabled us to stage and broadcast live interviews on the IG Live platform, which was a bit ropey at the start of the pandemic. A couple of months later, Instagram literally flung all its design engineering capacity at it, and it got much better. And they've been incredibly helpful to us whenever we've had technical hitches, which in the early days was rather often. So a huge thank you to them for that. But it also means that you can broadcast or stream the recording on your video channel. But because we already had quite large Instagram followings, we could also promote our content using them, using our own grids to cross-promote. And so for all those reasons, it made sense. And indeed, it worked out very well. I think also it's a very sort of fun and casual way for people to engage. And although Design Emergency deals with, the massive, complex, terrifying intersectional issues of our time, whether it's the climate, emergency, the refugee crisis, the housing crisis, whatever, we have always tried to make the discussions lively and engaging and accessible.
You really talk about things where you don't need specialists. Everybody understands what you're talking about, and because you were able to transmit the problem in an easy way without making it banal. And I think this has been very important, that you had this direct, let's say, voice.
More to the point is that we really saw the pandemic as a potential game changer for design, which could transform public and political attitudes towards design, to really empower it to tackle these complex challenges. And so beginning with COVID was helpful because no one understood what COVID was or how to treat it, but they all understood what it was and how grave a threat it was. So it was a very clear way of showing how design can intervene in very complex conditions.
Was this already an idea from the beginning to do a book?
We truly started by saying, hey, let's show people what design is doing right now. And I think it was also powerful to be together in this, because we've been tough with each other in selecting the interviews, because we wanted to make sure that with very few exceptions, all the interviews reflected an actual project, something that was happening, not just speculation. And so, and sometimes we would tell each other, not that person is not really right, but everything was very organic and happened the right way. And when we thought that a book would be a good idea, we asked Faidon, and Emilia Terrani, who's here today, actually, she picked up this idea and she actually championed us, and it was really a dream come true. But it was something that happened. You had the idea of the book.
Well, no, I didn't. I was approached by a number of publishers who asked whether we were interested in doing a book. So that sort of sowed the seed as a possibility. And actually that for us was a test to see if we printed the content, it would work. For the book, we obviously made it different by having introductory contextual essays as well.
And will you continue doing Design Emergency on Instagram? Or the chapter is over and you go to something?
We're ongoing. We've done more than 70 interviews. There's one scheduled for next week. I mean, until we're enjoying it, it's a lot of work. But it's very fulfilling because it gives us an opportunity to really champion designers that are doing an amazing work, accidental designers or professional designers, and it gives us a chance to show the multifaceted nature of design to a wide audience.
As Paola says, we've both hugely enjoyed it. It's been really stimulating. Whenever new emergencies emerge, like the war in Ukraine, for example, we did an interview with Slava Bablek, the Ukrainian architect who's been very much at the forefront of the design relief effort. And so we're both very curious people, and that's why we love design. It's kind of our passport to investigate whatever interests us. And Design Emergency has been another way, alongside our other work, of doing that. So it's been great fun. When it stops being fun, we'll stop doing it.
So the theme of our talks is actually passion for architecture, design, and art. And those two ladies really do have this passion. Thank you very much.
So do you, Birgit. Thank you.
The Faidon book is available over here. And I got the promise that they will sign a few. Please feel free to get a copy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.